a ring. It was perhaps worn at times, suspended on a string. Of some sort. Also, the sexual attributes are key, which... The ivory flute is really a remarkable artifact that Maria Molina discovered a few years back. And I think what's extremely important is that we realize that archaeology today is not a heroic adventure with spades and picks, but high-tech scientific work that's done with incredible detail. Really, millimeter by millimeter, the sediments are removed in these deposits, the age of Grotte Chauvet and our sites, between 30 and 40,000 years ago. And this detailed work allowed Maria to identify a whole range of finds that she was able to piece together. Maybe you can explain how that worked out.
Yes, we were doing an inventory of all the artifact pieces. Some of the pieces came from the 1970s, from the first years of excavation. And these were really small pieces. You can see here in this picture.
The tiny ivory pieces remained unexplained for a full 3 decades.
And 31 pieces had a very significant look. We found pieces with a part of the finger holes and with notches on the side. And with these pieces, I thought already that it could be a part of an ivory flute. Of course, the question was very important how this flute was made. And you can see here on the long axis, there's a split going all over the flute. And inside the two halves, they hollowed the flute out, and these little notches along this axis, along the split, helped to refit these two halves together very precise.
This flute is only one of 8 in all so far recovered from this area of southwestern Germany. The caves here have no paintings, but yield many other objects of art.
In this cave, the Geissenklösterle cave, many very important findings from the Ice Age were made. We found some little ivory statues of bear and mammoth, a very tiny mammoth, very lovely. And in 1992, I was part of the excavation team. People lived here about 40,000 years back in time. And in that time, it was very cold here because the Alp mountains were covered by a glacier about 2,500 meters thick. And in the valley down there, reindeer and mammoths were passing, and it was very cold. And that's the reason why I'm dressed up like an Inuit. We presume that in this way, the people of the Ice Age were clothed by reindeer fur and boots made of reindeer fur and reindeer leather, because otherwise you couldn't stand the cold. One of the most important finds we made in this cave was a very tiny flute made out of the radius of a vulture. Astonishing on this flute is that it is pentatonic. And this is the same tonality we are used to hear today. And if you like, I'll try to play some small tunes for you. And when I first reconstructed the instrument and tried to play some tunes, I came across these ones. Sounds a little bit like Star Spangled Banner.
Back in France near Chauvet Cave, explorers, using more primal techniques in search of still hidden underground chambers, roam the landscape.
Les professionnels de la spéléologie ont
Professional cave explorers have techniques for finding underground chambers because they are air currents, so they use the back of their hands or their cheeks to feel for a faint draft of air that may be coming out of the cave.
sortir de la grotte. Moi, j'essaye de faire une façon.
I'm trying to do things differently, as I have the habit of using my sense of smell in my profession.
Donc j'essaye de sentir
So I try to sniff the smells coming from the interior of a cave.
de l'intérieur de la cavité. Ici, j'ai rien
Here,
senti. Ici,
I didn't smell anything except the exterior landscape. Outside, you can smell the earth, the wild thyme, the ivy. You can smell a range of things, but nothing specific related to a cavern that's been closed for thousands of years.
des dizaines de siècles. Voilà, donc
This is my personal technique because I design perfumes. It's a matter of trying to experience it in a different manner. So I've always created perfumes. And most notably, I was president of the French Society of Perfumers for some years. And
j'ai été président de la Société française des parfumeurs pendant quelques années et
There are plans to build a theme park for tourists with a precise replica of the cave a few miles from here. This replica may even contain a recreation of the odor of the prehistoric interior.
évidemment l'odeur.
evidently, the odor you can smell right now is quite attenuated. It is very subtle. There are not many emanations, but our imagination permits us to try and reconstruct the scene. The scene with its odors from 25,000 years ago, with all the animals that would have been found there: bears, wolves, perhaps even rhinoceroses, and men.
Des hommes
The presence of their lives, meaning burnt wood, resins, the odors of everything from the natural world that surrounds this cave. We can go back with our imagination.
on peut le retrouver par l'imagination.
With his sense of wonder, the cave transforms into an enchanted world of the imaginary, where time and space lose their meaning. These crystal formations take thousands of years to grow. The artists of the cave never even saw them, as many of them only started to form after the landslide sealed the entrance. In a forbidden recess of the cave, there's a footprint of an 8-year-old boy next to the footprint of a wolf. Did a hungry wolf stalk the boy? Or did they walk together as friends? Or were their tracks made thousands of years apart? We'll never know. dwarfed by these large chambers, illuminated by our wandering lights, sometimes we were overcome by a strange, irrational sensation, as if we were disturbing the Paleolithic people in their work. It felt like eyes upon us. This sensation occurred to some of the scientists and also the discoverers of the cave. It was a relief to surface again above ground. Back outside, we asked Jean-Michel Geneste about hunting techniques of Paleolithic people, millennia before the invention of bow and arrow.
At the Chauvet Cave, Aurignacian people hunted a lot of really big games. They hunted everywhere in France and Europe. In the settlement, we found a lot of bones of reindeer, bison, horses, and sometimes mammoths. So they developed very specific hunting technology. For example, the system of the Aurignacian bone point is very ingenious. It's a bone point on a wooden shaft. The piece of the bone point is very strongly associated to the shaft. It's a system using a fork and a piece inside, so it's very strong. It has been made and developed to kill bison or horses like that. It's very aggressive and it's also very strong and powerful. This kind of weapon and spear were thrown not only by hand like that, because it's not very efficient, but we suspect that in the beginning of the Upper Paleolithic, they developed the technology of the spear thrower. A spear thrower, it's at the beginning only a hook, sometimes a tooth of piece of antler like this one, on a long handle. It's elongated the arm, give a lot of power like that, and also at the same time some precision to give at the spears a good direction. So I will show you. Yes. You see the spear with a flint point, but to use this, it's necessary to have a small depression at the back of the spear. We suspect that sometimes they use feathers to keep the direction at the moment of the throw. I will try to show you how to kill a horse. Okay.
His efforts may not look very convincing, but this is a powerful weapon. Spearheads have been found deeply embedded in the shoulder blades of horses and mammoths.
You see the flight? It's very straight and it's 30 meters.
But stay here. The Paleolithic men was better than you, I guess.
Oh, I suspect it could be really difficult for me with such a shoot to kill a horse, really.
By mid-April, scientific research has ended for the year. Now we are allowed full access to the cave. But even that is restricted to a single week, 4 hours a day. The famous cave of Lascaux had to be shut down because the breath of scores of tourists has caused mold to grow on the walls. We enter Chauvet Cave, aware that this may be the only and last opportunity to film inside. The mystery of the Minotaur and the female began to unfold when our guides allowed us to mount a small camera on a stick with which we reached out. The bison seems to embrace the sex of a naked woman.
Traditional people, and I think people of the Paleolithic, had very probably some two concepts which change our vision of the world. They are the concept of fluidity and the concept of permeability. Fluidity means that the categories that we have, man, woman, horse, I don't know, tree, etc., can shift. A tree may speak. A man can get transformed into an animal, and the other way around, given certain circumstances. The concept of permeability is that there are no barriers, so to speak, between the world where we are and the world of the spirits. A wall can talk to us, or a wall can accept us or refuse us. A shaman, for example, can send his or her spirit to the world of the supernatural, or can receive the visit inside him or her of supernatural spirits. If you put those two concepts together, you realize how different life must have been for those people from the way we live now. Humans have been described in many ways, right? And for a while, it was Homo sapiens, and it's still called Homo sapiens, the man who knows. I don't think it's a good definition at all. We don't know much. I would think Homo spiritualis.
The strongest hint of something spiritual, some religious ceremony in the cave, is this bear skull. It has been placed dead center on a rock, resembling an altar. The staging seems deliberate. The skull faces the entrance of the cave, and around it, fragments of charcoal were found, potentially used as incense. What exactly took place here, only the paintings could tell us.
if you want to have an understanding of it, you must go outside of the cave. I mean, you must start from the cave and then go outside.
How far outside? Where would you go?
Well, I would say everywhere, but with to have a look at different culture would be a very good way to better understand how different culture could have coped with rock art. For example, in Australia, in North America, or in South Africa.
Aborigines in Australia who lived until recently almost like Stone Age people?
Sure, for example, because they used to paint and to create rock art until the 1970s, and in some places I think there still are some traditions of creating rock art. Well, of course, it has changed since the beginning of the century when they were discovered, but it can tell us different ways of looking at rock art, which are not our way of looking at rock art.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, sure. Of course, in North Australia, for example, in the 1970s, an ethnographer was on the field with an Aborigine who was his informer. And once they arrived in a rock shelter, and in that rock shelter there were some beautiful paintings, but they were decaying. And the Aborigine started to become sad because he saw the paintings decaying. And in that region, there is a tradition of touching up the paintings time after time. So he sat and he started to touch up the paintings. So the ethnographer asked the question that every Western person would have asked, "Why are you painting?" And the man answered, and his answer is very troubling, because he answered, I am not painting. That's the Oni hand spirit who is actually painting now.
The hand of a spirit.
Yeah, because the man is a part of this spirit.
Each of you possesses the most powerful, dangerous, and subversive trait that natural selection has ever devised. It's a piece of neural audio technology for rewiring other people's minds. I'm talking about your language, of course, because it allows you to implant a thought from your mind directly into someone else's mind, and they can attempt to do the same to you, and without either of you having to perform surgery. Instead, when you speak, you're actually using a form of telemetry, not so different from the remote control device for your television. It's just that whereas that device relies on pulses of infrared light, your language relies on pulses, discrete pulses of sound. And just as you use the remote control device to alter the internal settings of your television to suit your mood, you use your language to alter the settings inside someone else's brain to suit your interests. Language is our genes talking, getting things that they want. And just imagine the sense of wonder in a baby when it first discovers that merely by uttering a sound, it can get objects to move across a room as if by magic, and maybe even into its mouth. Now, language's subversive power has been recognized throughout the ages in censorship, in books you can't read, in phrases you can't use, and words you can't say. In fact, the Tower of Babel story in the Bible is a fable and warning about the power of language. According to that story, early humans developed the conceit that by using their language to work together, they could build a tower that would take them all the way to heaven. Now, God, angered at this attempt to usurp his power, destroyed the tower, and then to ensure that it would never be rebuilt, he scattered the people by giving them different languages, confused them by giving them different languages. And this leads to the wonderful irony that our languages exist to prevent us from communicating. Even today, we know that there are words we cannot use, phrases we cannot say, because if we do so, we might be accosted, jailed, or even killed. And all of this from a puff of air emanating from our mouths. Now, all this fuss about a single one of our traits tells us there's something worth explaining. And that is, how and why did this remarkable trait evolve, and why did it evolve only in our species? Now, it's a little bit of a surprise that to get an answer to that question, we have to go to tool use in the chimpanzees. Now, these chimpanzees are using tools, and we take that as a sign of their intelligence. But if they really were intelligent, why would they use a stick to extract termites from the ground rather than a shovel? And if they really were intelligent, why would they crack open nuts with a rock? Why wouldn't they just go to a shop and buy a bag of nuts that somebody else had already cracked open for them? Why not? I mean, that's what we do. Now, the reason the chimpanzees don't do that is that they lack what psychologists and anthropologists call social learning. They seem to lack the ability to learn from others by copying or imitating or simply watching. As a result, they can't improve on others' ideas or learn from others' mistakes, benefit from others' wisdom. And so they just do the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, we could go away for 1 million years and come back, and these chimpanzees would be doing the same thing, with the same sticks for the termites and the same rocks to crack open the nuts. Now, this may sound arrogant or even full of hubris. How do we know this? Because this is exactly what our ancestors, the Homo erectus, did. These upright apes evolved on the African savanna about 2 million years ago, and they made these splendid hand axes that fit wonderfully into your hands. But if we look at the fossil record, we see that they made the same hand axe over and over and over again for 1 million years. We can follow it through the fossil record. Now, if we make some guesses about how long Homo erectus lived, what their generation time was, that's about 40,000 generations of parents to offspring and other individuals watching in which that hand axe didn't change. It's not even clear that our very close genetic relatives, the Neanderthals, had social learning. Sure enough, their tools were more complicated than those of Homo erectus, but they too showed very little change over the 300,000 years or so that those species, the Neanderthals, lived in Eurasia. Okay, so what this tells us is that contrary to the old adage, monkey see, monkey do, the surprise really is that all of the other animals really cannot do that, at least not very much. And even this picture has this suspicious taint of being rigged about it, something from a Barnum and Bailey circus. But by comparison, we can learn. We can learn by watching other people and copying or imitating what they can do. We can then choose from among a range of options the best one. We can benefit from others' ideas. We can build on their wisdom. And as a result, our ideas do accumulate and our technology progresses. Range of options, and the best one. Cumulative cultural adaptation. Build on their wisdom. And as a result, our ideas do accumulate and our technology. As anthropologists call this accumulation of ideas, is responsible for everything around you in your bustling and teeming everyday lives. I mean, the world has changed out of all proportion to what we would recognize even 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And all of this because of cumulative cultural adaptation. The chairs you're sitting in, the lights in this auditorium, my microphone, the iPads and iPods that you carry around with you, all a result of cumulative cultural adaptation. Now, to many commentators, cumulative cultural adaptation or social learning is job done. End of story. Our species can make stuff, therefore we prospered in a way that no other species has. In fact, we can even make the stuff of life, as I just said, all the stuff around us. But in fact, it turns out that sometime around 200,000 years ago, when our species first arose and acquired social learning, that this was really the beginning of our story, not the end of our story, because our acquisition of social learning would create a social and evolutionary dilemma, the resolution of which, it's fair to say, would determine not only the future course of our psychology, but the future course of the entire world. And most importantly for this, it will tell us why we have language. And the reason that dilemma arose is it turns out that social learning is visual theft. If I can learn by watching you, I can steal your best ideas, and I can benefit from your efforts without having to put in the time and energy that you did into developing them. If I can watch which lure you use to catch a fish, or I can watch how you flake your hand axe to make it better, or if I follow you secretly to your mushroom patch, I can benefit from your knowledge and wisdom and skills, and maybe even catch that fish before you do. Social learning really is visual theft. And in any species that acquired it, it would behoove you to hide your best ideas lest somebody steal them from you. And so, sometime around 200,000 years ago, our species confronted this crisis. And we really had only two options for dealing with the conflicts that visual theft would bring. One of those options was that we could have retreated into small family groups, because then the benefits of our ideas and knowledge would flow just to our relatives. Had we chosen this option sometime around 200,000 years ago, we would probably still be living like the Neanderthals were when we first entered Europe 40,000 years ago. And this is because in small groups there are fewer ideas, there are fewer innovations, and small groups are more prone to accidents and bad luck. So if we'd chosen that path, our evolutionary path would have led into the forest and have been a short one indeed. The other option we could choose was to develop the systems of communication that would allow us to share ideas and to cooperate amongst others. Choosing this option would mean that a vastly greater fund of accumulated knowledge and wisdom would become available to any one individual than would ever arise from within an individual family or an individual person on their own. Well, we chose the second option, and language is the result. Language evolved to solve the crisis of visual theft. Language is a piece of social technology for enhancing the benefits of cooperation, for reaching agreements, for striking deals, and for coordinating our activities. And you can see that in a developing society that was beginning to acquire language, not having language would be like a bird without wings. Just as wings open up the sphere of air for birds to exploit, language opened up the sphere of cooperation for humans to exploit. And we take this utterly for granted because we're a species that is so at home with language. But you have to realize that even the simplest acts of exchange that we engage in are utterly dependent upon language. And to see why, consider two scenarios from early in our evolution. Let's imagine that you are really good at making arrowheads, but you're hopeless at making the wooden shafts with the flight feathers attached. Two other people you know are very good at making the wooden shafts, but they're hopeless at making the arrowheads. So what you do is, one of those people has not really acquired language yet. Let's presume the other one is good at language skills. So what you do one day is you take a pile of arrowheads and you walk up to the one that can't speak very well, and you put the arrowheads down in front of him, hoping he'll get the idea that you want to trade your arrowheads for finished arrows. But he looks at the pile of arrowheads, thinks they're a gift, picks them up, smiles, and walks off. Now you pursue this guy, gesticulating, a scuffle ensues, and you get stabbed with one of your own arrowheads. Okay, now replay this scene now, and you're approaching the one who has language. You put down your arrowheads and say, I'd like to trade these arrowheads for finished arrows. I'll split you 50-50. Another one says, fine, looks good to me, we'll do that. Okay, now the job is done. Once we have language, we can put our ideas together and cooperate to have a prosperity that we couldn't have before we acquired it. And this is why our species has prospered around the world while the rest of the animals sit behind bars in zoos languishing. And it's why we build space shuttles and cathedrals while the rest of the world sticks into the ground to extract termites. All right, now if this view of language and its value in solving the crisis of visual theft
Stop. Okay. I'm sorry, you're out of order here, okay? A man walks into your place of business in his pajamas and you start punching him around, give him the old 1-2 up the kazoo? Not in my courtroom, Sally Ann. And you. You're right. When you're right, you're right. I gotta hand it to you, kiddo. You came in here like a house on fire, barnstorming, you made your points. Good schmuckus on you. All right, well, I find for the plaintiff, give him whatever he wants, okay? Find out what he wants. Give it to him, on me, okay? All right, so that's all for me. Okay, I'm gonna leave now. How do I?
Just stand up, sir, and walk away.
Up next, she says she left her car overnight at his garage, and when she came to retrieve it, the radio was gone. He says that's impossible. The garage is locked, and only she has the key. In the case of the car in the garage that somebody has the key to. Filling in for Judge Sandy, Some Nonsense Whistleton, is Judge Gibby, All Nonsense Wang Doodle.
Now that's what I call a real nightcap.
Judge George is brought to you by Prylovac.
Honey, it looks like Herschel's again.
When you eat like a giant baby with money, your stomach can feel like Dante's Inferno.
That's when even the Pope reaches for Prylovac.
Prylovac clears everything out in seconds and tells your stupid body to quit its screaming and man up.
Prylovac looks your stomach right in the eye and says, ride this! Bless me, Lord, I can eat like a fucking idiot with no repercussions!
Prylovac, fuck your body.
I'm Charlene Boyer. My guest tonight is film director Peter Allison Moncrief, whose new film, Better Roots, takes on the most disgraceful chapter in American history, the showing of roots. With his multi-part TV film, Better Roots, Peter, welcome.
Charlene, thank you.
Now, the word dignity, it's not often associated with films about slavery.
Well, we don't use that word.
Dignity?
No, the other word.
Films?
No.
Associate.
No, the last word you used, it starts with the letter S.
Slavery.
That's the one, yes. We're trying to move past that. See, that word has so many negative connotations, you know, if you bother to look it up. What we've done is we're using the words helper and helping. You know, because that's what these people did. They helped build a nation.
Dignity all around.
Yeah, this is a film that you can show in any classroom, and those kids are going to walk out of there feeling good about themselves, feeling good about their ancestors, feeling great about me, and good about America.
Okay, let's look at a clip.
Whoa, whoa. Lemonade break!
There you go.
If I could take a moment out of your lemonade break, I'd like to say a thank you on behalf of myself.
Damn you! Damn you to hell, Dilton. We out here, we trying to help you and everything, but you slowing us down with all these lemonade breaks and snack times and thank yous. Don't nobody need no thank you.
Well, you better get used to it, because I'm gonna thank you every day. You hear me? Dignity all around.
Now, there was the end there. Is that the end of the film?
No, Charlene, that'd be ridiculous. Why would I? No, that's the end of the clip.
So that was just the end of the clip. Okay, would you say that this is a new take on an old story?
It's an update. Nothing more. You know, that's all it is, really. We're showing a side that's never been shown.
I'd like to ask you about the scene where the slaves are getting paid.
Helpers. Helpers.
Yes, let's watch.
Tunde! Aren't you gonna sign for it?
Oh. Yes, Mr. Dilton.
Mr. Dilton is my father. My name's Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Not so fast. Now, I heard somebody said something about somebody in the field, a helper, getting all high and mighty and telling how they be doing twice the work of the other helper. Maybe even more work than old Grieve here. Yeah, you don't know nothing about that now, do you?
No, sir. Jody, I just do my job best I can, do school at night so I can become a lawyer and then a president of the United States one day, keep my mouth shut.
You don't know nothing about nothing to talk to nobody, no how. Is that it?
Yes.
Well, good. Then I must have got the right helper. You got something special in your pay packet. Open it up. I can't read so good. Can you read that to me?
It say, good for one free hug.
You want to collect on that now?
I would, sir.
Oh, I'm so glad you said yes. Come on, Grieve, get in on this hug. Come on, Grieve. Nobody hugs like old Grieve. He just thought he was getting money.
Well, now that is an uplifting ending.
No, that's the end of the clip. Well, I put the end over the end of the clip so you wouldn't get confused. You know, I don't want people to watch this show and think this show is part of the movie. That's why I put the end over the clip so they would know. Otherwise...
Now, your detractors are saying that you've whitewashed things.
Okay, well, that's racist. As a white man, I find that insulting, and it feels like I'm being personally attacked. And look, we don't shy away from the brutality of helperism.
Slavery.
That's your word, okay? We have a brutal whipping scene in here, which is, quite frankly, unforgiving. You know, show that, why don't you? Get off my ass for a fucking second.
Here. What the hell are you doing? You're hurting him.
What?
What the hell is that?
It won't me, it's this whip here.
The whip?
I followed the instructions
Let
to
me
the
see
letter.
him.
It's right here.
Show me the instructions.
It maybe is too shaky.
Shut up now, Grieve. The heck you done? Which end did you hold?
I held it this end.
And then you hit him with?
I hit him with the raggly end.
I don't care about that. You untie him.
Yes, sir. Sorry, Dylan. I'm so sorry. You all right there? I didn't mean to do nothing. I can't remember how I tied this. Get it off me. Okay. Is that better? There we go. Okay.
Now, Grieve.
Yes, sir.
You know what you gotta do.
Yes, I reckon I do, sir. I need to return this here whip. It almost really hurt this helper.
Now, that just said the end twice.
Yes, it's the end of the movie and the end of the clip.
Fascinating. Tomorrow night, my guest will be America's premier sci-fi director, Kyle Buggins, whose new film has become, in just a few short weeks, the highest-grossing film ever made. Transform Bots, about transsexual robots that can switch their sexual identities at will, and switch back also, or not be robots at all either, even.
The Charlene Boyer Show is funded in part by Zimble Internation Phones. Zimble Phones. Mike said I couldn't do it.
They did it. Every single one of them. I did my best.
The decision did not go in your favor. Your reaction?
Well, the decision is one thing. For me, I found that the amount of nonsense was of a greater degree than I'd been led to believe it would be.
Thank you. And the decision did go in your favor, and your reaction?
I think it was the exact right amount of nonsense.
Absolutely.
I think it was the exact right amount of nonsense.
Absolutely.
I think it was the exact right amount of nonsense.
Absolutely.
I think it was the exact right amount of nonsense.
Oh, what?
The jig is up, Mike.